Yeah. So we're going to tell you real quick a little bit about us, because I think it's nice to know our background, because it definitely lends itself to an understanding of how we got where we are. I was a professional actress in New York City for about 8 years. I also was involved in improv, which was super fun, and I really prefer that. I migrated into the HR kind of world in corporate HR recruiting with a company called AIG. You may have heard of that. And then left New York City after the birth of our son, came out to Colorado, got involved with executive directing nonprofits, and then most recently the director of change management and training for a cloud-based HRIS company, software company here in Denver. Your turn.
Thank you. I'm Bruce Montgomery. I'm a Gemini. I actually most recently worked for a data and analytics company that had a customer data platform primarily in the sports and entertainment space. I was director of key accounts, focused on a couple accounts that you are probably familiar with. One of them has a problem with concussions. The other one has a challenge. They can only turn left when they race their cars. So those are two of the key accounts that I had to work with. Before that, I was a management consultant for a large Big Five consulting firm. Before that, a professional actor in New York City. We started Experience Yes about 5 years ago, and really we've been very fortunate thinking through the innovation space and kind of how companies approach innovation and how they approach their thinking with using some tools that we'll talk about today. So there's a quick NASCAR slide to advertise that. Go ahead, Gail.
All right, so it's been a fascinating day so far. Bruce and I had a little bit of information about marketing, but more specifically, we didn't really understand competitive marketing, so we kind of had to take a deep dive on our own. And I think from an end user perspective, it's kind of nice because we get an opportunity to dig into topics that we may not be familiar with. My favorite, the cards.
Battle cards?
Yeah, we were talking about that last night, and we've got a son who's really into video games. I was like, ooh, is this video game related? He's like, yeah, no, not really, but let me tell you what that's all about. And as we were talking about some of these key terms that you guys use, positioning in the market, your silver bullets, your battle cards, it occurred to me that there's nothing more significant to marketing, and specifically when you're pulling data together, to how are you going to move beyond what is obvious, right? How are you truly going to innovate around that information that you get?
Yeah, I mean, it was in the talks that we've heard of so far. It's been really interesting to hear about product marketing, competitive intelligence. It still comes back to the same thing. How are we going to think about our product differently so that we can position ourselves in the marketplace in a better way? Whether it's with data, whether it's with ideas, whether it's with marketing, we've got to find these differentiators, and that's really the space that we play in, is this innovation space.
And so really what it comes down to is a main rule. It's called yes and, right? And so we like to talk about what we call the yes and principle. And a culture of yes is something we're really passionate about. We'll talk more about some other rules that we think are awesome too, but that's what we're going to talk about mostly today.
So think about the last time you were presented with a new idea. The last time you were presented with a new idea, you might have looked like this. And if you're on a team that was presented with a new idea, they probably look like that. Why? Because change equals risk, and risk equals bad.
Or failure.
Yeah, that's coming up.
Potential.
Right. Change equals risk equals bad. We are inherently designed to be terrified of risk.
My favorite is I work with corporations in the past on implementations of technical software in the change space. And my favorite is they go through sales, they're really excited about this efficiency that's coming their way, and then they have the freak out mode, right? But what do you mean? I have to learn how to use that new technology. Even though it's going to save me time, even though it's going to help all my teams perform better. It will look a lot like the next slide, right? This comfort level that we feel like we're in, even if the efficiency is bad, right? If all process is bad, we feel like we're here while I'm there having a massage, right? And a fruity drink in my hand. But that comfort right? That's not what we're really aiming for. We're aiming for the risk and the innovation. And earlier, as we were talking about the potential for that blue ocean strategy.
So there's been a number of studies that have been done recently. One was done out of MIT that focused on the number of ideas generated. And the concept was, if people can generate more ideas, are those ideas any better? So what they found was, simply by turning the mechanic, simply by turning the screw and saying, hey, we're going to look for people who have more ideas, the more likely they were going to have a good, sticky idea. That one level. More ideas, better ideas.
And it may seem totally obvious, right? I think we all know that when we hear that word innovation, we think, and how? Are we sitting at a table and we're just praising each other for whatever idea comes out of our mouth and we're really excited about it? No, we have to think about it in a different way, right? In terms of how truly we're going to innovate.
So, think of a paperclip. This is a classic creative test exam called an alternate uses test. It's been around since the 1960s. It is half of the Torrance test. The Torrance test has also been around since the 1960s. If you have a gifted child, if you have a very smart child, this is half of the test that they would actually have to take. The concept being, how many different ways can you use a paperclip? You start thinking about that, and thinking about that, and sitting with that, and thinking about that. There is a group of people, an identified group of people, who would score at 98% of them are geniuses at this creative task. Some of you think that group of people is. It's not marketers.
Say it loud.
I'm sorry, it's
Say
not
it loud
marketers.
and proud. Who is it?
Kindergartners.
Kindergartners.
Specifically kindergartners.
And why do you think that is? Nobody.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Nobody has slapped their creative genes.
No one has slapped their creative genes.
That's the first time
That's the first time I've heard that particular phrase. That's right, yeah,
Awesome,
that's great,
right?
that's right, that's exactly right. What's really interesting, this was actually a longitudinal study. So they took the same kids over time and they measured them on this test alone. And what they found was, by the time they reached adult, there were about 4% that were considered geniuses at this task.
Here's the crazy thing. My favorite is, we do this with each other all the time. We can be at a restaurant and Bruce will pick up a fork and he'll challenge me to think of as many ideas as I can of what to do with that fork. What I love is, in the sessions that we lead, oftentimes we see clip paper, which is great, because it does that.
Take my notes.
Right, yeah, oh yeah. Or a zipper pull, we're starting to get more creative now. And then we challenge them to start thinking about it in a whole new way. What's it made out of? How big could it be? Why do we have to keep it in the space that we've learned it to be in?
Yeah, but if I unfolded this, why couldn't it be Gandalf's staff?
Ooh, I like
Why couldn't it be a baseball bat that knocks the earth off its axis? Kindergartners are already good at doing that. We are horrible at it, which is challenging because we're adults. We expect that we're going to be good at this.
Ooh, I love that story about Vortex. You should tell that.
Yeah, sure. The story about Gore-Tex. So Gore-Tex, and they devote 20% of their time, like many innovation companies, they devote 20% of their time to projects that they're passionate about. One of their folks came up with an idea, not related to Gore-Tex, that was guitar strings. The guy was a musician. He really was interested in guitar strings. He put a product team together. They analyzed the market. They determined there was a gap in guitar strings, and they created a line of best-selling guitar strings. Just because somebody had passion about it and thought about it differently.
And leverage what they had, right, at their fingertips, because they used their teams and some of their, chemistry, right, in the lab to be able to figure that out, which I think is pretty awesome.
There is a word in the English language, arguably the most powerful two-letter word in the English language that we have, that stifles and kills creativity and innovation. What is that word?
No.
No, that's right, no. It's so simple to say. No, no. What other ways do we say no? There are a number of other kind of couched words that we use to
Oh,
say
here's
no.
my favorite. I said this to my kid. I love you.
But clean your room.
If you say but, and by the way, I'm not perfect at this, I challenge myself every day to be better, and is the connector. If I say but, I've erased everything I've just said to you. And I challenge you to kind of count how many times you throw that in sentences. Great idea, but how are we gonna make that happen?
We had that conversation today in the back, 2 seats right there in the very back, when Gail was suggesting something we were talking about the product marketing mix at the beginning, and I said, yes, but what we need to do is this. And she's like, yes, I am. Yeah, all right, got it. I still do it. How else do we say no?
Later.
Later? That's good, yeah. Sure, we'll do it later, no problem. How else?
Let me think about it.
Can't, still not, let me think about it. Sure, that's a very passive aggressive way, like, oh, let me think about it. Yeah, that's great. How else?
Silence.
Avoidance, silence. Yes, this is great. Just like, all right, I'll just ghost you. Nah, I'm not even.
Yes, that's good.
Still, but, however, well. I mean, we are so good at saying no. We are exceptional at saying no.
Oh, and FYI, you can say yes and still drive it towards what you need. Great example. Bruce comes into my office. Gail, I really need you to help me with this report.
Gail, I really need you to help me with this report.
Yeah. Bruce, I'd love to, and I've got time on Tuesday. Or, I love you, and most of my hours are dedicated towards
Something else.
right? So I still drove it, right? What he hears is yes. There is so much great data, and some of you probably already know this out there about what saying yes does to teams of people. They're more efficient, they're more willing to connect with you, they're more engaged, and they're more positive moving forward.
Yeah, there's a number that's like 25. You take a recovery time of hearing a no of 25% of your time to get back into the task that you were at. You lose 25% efficiency by hearing a no. That's powerful stuff for a team. Why do we say no? What are we afraid of? Change, yes. What? And there's something sitting behind change. What is it? Risk, yes. Even before that,
We're gonna fail.
fail. We are terrified of failure. No matter what we say, I practice this, I do this, whatever, no, we're terrified of failure. And what's interesting is, from the data perspective, we have a bold, bold statement. Our brains are better than yours. I didn't say smarter. I said our brains are better than yours.
Why is that, Bruce?
Thank you for that setup. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Because we practice something called transient hypofrontality.
Super sexy stuff,
Yeah,
guys.
ladies.
You should be writing
Right,
this down.
right there.
Right?
Transient.
What does that mean?
Yeah, transient hypofrontality is the systematic process of changing a portion of your brain, the one that is responsible for saying no, shutting it down, tamping it down, so that you can say yes more frequently, more often, and faster.
This is a thing. This is full-on data that's out there to show this, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is.
Yeah. It's called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
That's also very
I
sexy.
know, I'm a nerd. Right, I'm an IT guy. I
Oh,
love
listen,
this
geeking
stuff.
out. You were talking about geeking out, Andreas. Honestly,
Yeah.
this is the stuff we nerd out about.
Yeah.
The brain and innovation.
Did anybody notice, by the way, the packet pusher's logo is a dodecahedron? Did anybody
Anyone?
else catch that?
Anyone?
Yeah, full on nerd. Okay, so the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, it's the left side of your brain, it's right up front. It doesn't develop in your head until you're about 23 if you're women, about 25 for men.
And thank goodness we know this, because this is why we didn't kill our son.
Yes.
Our son is 18, and every time we get frustrated by decisions that he makes in life, we have to remind ourselves that his brain is not fully developed yet. So that saves him. That really saves him.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
So the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is tremendously important. It's a very important part of the brain. It's what has allowed us to do a lot of things when we're older that we get to do, like executive judge, long-range planning, working memory, organization, regulation. It does a lot of stuff that as adults, we really, really like.
Yes.
The problem is, when it comes to creativity, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to new ideas, it's fighting you every single step of the way.
And actually, it's a really cool study was also done at UPenn, basically taking willing volunteers, this blows my mind, to come into a lab and strap a couple of moist sponges on their head with some electrical leads, a strap, and they were trying to temporarily suppress this DLPFC to see if they could increase creative neural pathways in the brain. And it works, it really does. Who wants to do that though? I mean,
Seriously, there actually is a whole subculture of like YouTube channels of people taking like lemon juice, leads, and batteries and zapping themselves and then discussing on film what had just happened to them.
I
I smell orange. Yeah, like
Yeah.
it's not good. So we have a different way to get there. However, it's also been proven, and that's with improv. Improvisation is the one way that you can practice systematically shutting down that DLPFC.
And to speak to this particular picture that you see, there was this incredible study done by Charles Lim with jazz musicians. And Charles Lim was out of Johns Hopkins at the time. And Charles took these jazz musicians and he put them in an fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, right? So one where you can see the colors like you're seeing behind me. And he said, okay, I want you to play a piece of music you see on the screen in front of you. And then we're also gonna take an image of your brain when you just play, right? And what he found is exactly what Bruce was just talking about, this transient hypofrontality, right? This temporary suppression of this risk-averse part of your brain, right? Is simply by improvising. So we kind of put together that, maybe that's what's happening when all improv artists are doing that. Someone else did a study with rap artists, same result.
They actually just recently did a study with secondary school, high school aged children in England where they use these improv mechanics right before they go into a math exam or right before they do an English exam. And what they see is a 20 to 30% improvement in their grade when they have suppressed the DLPFC. So what are the rules of improv? We've already given you one, so please someone shout out that.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. Thank you very much. Yes, and. Good. What are the other, we focus on 3 other rules. What do you think those might be? It's good. Listen, well, hopefully they're doing it. Maybe they're not. They're like, I'm just going to check my phone.
Listening, absolutely. So yes, and listen, although we take it a step further, we like to say listen with intent to serve, right? Not intent to respond to that person, not intent to infer or for you to speak or solve anything, just to listen with intent to serve. What's another one?
It's really important for teams, any team. Cooperate, yeah, that's close. We say support your teammates at all costs. To us, in improv world, and if you think about the perfect teams, you have unilateral support for a decision. We're gonna go here, if I come in here and I say, Gail, this is our yellow brick road, let's start marching, Gail cannot say,
That is not a yellow brick road.
she has to say,
Yes, it is. Let's get going.
right, so that yes and practice, along with just this inherent support from a team member, is what really matters.
In business, it's really I was at a Joe in operations, right? Nobody gets thrown under the bus, right? Nobody gets blamed. If errors and failures happen, it's an embracing for all folks. We messed that up. We'll do better. Now that's Bruce and IT.
My job, you would say that. Project or IT?
Sorry.
One of the important things is it's always my job to make somebody else look good. Right? If you think about it like that, it's really powerful for creativity and innovation when you guys are coming up with new ideas to then present them forth.
The last one's a little tricky. The true improv rule is first thought, best thought, and maybe some of you have heard that before. We like to say trust your instincts, because in business, I think what happens oftentimes when we're in meetings, when we're in teams, is there's a lack of trust or a lack of respect or even a lack of self-confidence in your own ability where you don't say something, right? You don't speak up, you don't share your idea, you don't inspire someone else by challenging them. And so trusting your instincts is a critical component of good team performance and setting yourself up for innovation.
Now, we're particularly excited this year. He's kind of washed out. The researcher over on the right is Charles Lim. We actually, this year, have partnered in a study. This is not breaking HIPAA violation. This is actually my brain. We went in, I was comedian number 7. Gail got to sit in the control room. Because we're so passionate about the science behind this, about changing the brain and why improvisers have a different brain than everybody else and how we can practice that, we were able to get involved with Charles. We also have partnered, for anybody that's interested, we are looking for a corporate partner. This is Ellen Langer. She's out of Harvard. She was the first female tenured professor at Harvard in 1978. She has done a wonderful work on mindfulness. She owns a company called the Langer Mindfulness Institute, which is on like her fourth reprinting of a book called Mindfulness that came out in the 80s and is reprinted over time. This is to study over the long term the effects of these mechanics on humans.
And I want to kind of back up for a second. Bruce mentioned something that inspires me. It's this concept of practice. One of the things we talk about is how sports teams are always practicing. They're always looking at film, right? Looking at what they did right, what they did wrong, where they missed an opportunity. And business teams aren't. There's just this expectation. You, and you, warm bodies, you're a team, now go.
And then you're like, wow, they failed. I don't know why they failed. It's clearly their problem. One, you didn't give them mechanics on how to be a better team. Two, you didn't really understand how they could fail together and succeed together. And you didn't practice. Speaking of practice,
Yes.
let's play.
Woo! Hey guys.
So if
we're
we're
gonna
gonna
use
have
some
you
folks up
five,
here. Let's
please
see.
come up on stage. You five, three, and two, come up on stage. Nothing's
You're
gonna hurt.
free.
Good, come on up.
You and you.
Let's go.
Come on.
Come on. And
All
what we're
right.
gonna do is you're gonna face Gail.
You're gonna face me.
Face Gail. Good.
And then the rest of you are gonna trail out over there by the stairs.
And
Over here.
half
People
of
on
you-
this side. People on this side.
On that
Come
side,
over
same
here.
thing, same thing.
I did
So
good.
round of applause for our volunteers, please.
And so we're just trailing kind of
For
over.
all of you that just puckered, it's not going to be that bad. I promise. Really, it's not going to be.
There we go. All right, so we'll talk about the mechanics of this in a little bit, but right now we're just gonna go for it because that's what improv's all about. This is called a bucket game, okay? We're going to physically, both of you, are going to physically reach back and grab the thing that you're gonna say, like, and ice cream, whatever it is. You're gonna physically move it into the space. And you guys are gonna help me by giving me an example of a space where they can put some things, an environment, if you will. Can I get an environment?
Trunk.
A trunk of a car?
Trunk of a car. Perfect.
So we're in a trunk of a car, and we're going to reach in and put it in. We have 3 rules. 1, you can't repeat what the other person said, so you really need to be listening, right? And be inspired by them, right? If you're listening, you're gonna be inspired by something they say. 2, you have to make sure you try to do it efficiently, not too much lag time between what you're putting in the space, right? And what's the third one? I messed it up. Put it in the bucket. Don't repeat.
And don't pause.
Oh, and don't pass.
Yeah, don't
But put it in
don't-
the bucket. Physically put it in. That's the third rule. Okay? So we're in a trunk of a car. We're gonna start putting things in. You're just gonna alternate. So you start. Put it in there.
Basketball.
Okay, basketball.
A cat.
A cat.
Raincoat.
Raincoats, good.
Umbrella.
Perfect.
Bag.
Bag.
A dog.
Those are animals.
I think we'll stop there. Round of applause.
I remembered the third rule.
It's got to make sense.
It's got to make sense in the environment.
Now, if you keep your dog and cat in the trunk of your car, okay.
I guess if they're like vicious, right? All right, what's our next
So
environment?
let's get another environment, something that we could use up here.
Data centers.
A data center. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I cannot wait for this.
Okay, and put it in
Physically put it in.
A cooler.
Lots of phones.
Networking cable.
The supervisor.
CEO. Sorry, Jason.
Those poor workers.
A user's guide.
Hey man, we need some music, some entertainment.
And a guitar.
Oh, what about a harp?
there. Okay, well done. Round of applause. When it gets to the part, I want to know where this company is going to work there. All right, another environment.
I've never seen a CEO in the data center for the record. Of the data centers that I've worked in. Has anybody else here? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
So what's our next
Next environment.
environment?
A morgue. A morgue.
Well played, I'm bored.
A morgue.
I'm
That's
bored.
great.
Here we go, put it in there.
A body.
Good. Right.
Handkerchiefs. Napkins. A mop. A coffin.
You
You
know.
gotta trust those instincts.
Now I know where to go. Another environment.
Airplane.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Where did we say?
Airplane.
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 All right, you start us off.
Really shitty coffee.
Pilot.
Really bad wine.
Stewardess.
Dead body.
Screaming baby.
10-passenger seatbelt.
A passenger.
Drunk pilot.
Well, I'm gonna stop you there because we didn't say pilot, even though it's a drunk pilot. All right, give him a round of applause.
On a couple of things. I'm curious to know, those of you that are sitting out in the audience, is it super easy to think of things? Why? Because you're not under pressure. You're not under the fear of failure.
Judgment and failure, absolutely.
And you're not. So we trust me, you guys are great sports and we appreciate you being great sports. But we thrust you into this. Like, get up there. Well, imagine what happens with business teams when we do this. We like, go create a new idea, get to work. Everybody immediately gets stifled, immediately puckers, and they don't know what they're going to do, and it takes them a while to key in, to lean in, and to ramp up.
The other thing that is important to keep in mind, and I'm saying this because these last two are going to be ridiculously amazing, is that if you're listening to the other person, and you may have been listening to them as they were giving their ideas, you will be inspired by something they say. If you're really listening, right? And so then you don't have to work so hard. Because rather than that, you're sitting there thinking, what's next, what's next? Well, meanwhile, they may have said it, and then you'll say it. So instead of thinking what's next, just be inspired by each other.
For the record, Gail beats me at this game. We play this game a lot in the improv troupe that we're a part of.
I'm really glad you said that.
She's exceptional at this. I'm horrible at it because I'm always thinking of, oh, I've got to manufacture something. I have to come up with something. Where what she said is the secret. If you can listen to the person who's giving you something, from dead body to wig, for example, and then I might go brush or hair or comb, something that's going to help work on that hair. I'm right on top of the timing that's supposed to be there. If you listen, it's such a simple little game, right? It's a simple little game, but the impacts are really powerful.
Last environment.
Pocket. A pocket. All right, I like it.
Okay.
How about this more specific? My grandmother's pocket.
Okay, grandmother's pocket.
Butterscotch candy.
Wrigley's gum. Oh, sorry, Wrigley's gum.
Glass.
Handkerchief.
A wig.
And round of applause.
So one question that I have for you guys is, why do we ask you to physically put something in there? Why do we do that? Why are we asking you to do that?
Distract you from your brain freezing.
That's exactly right. So if you think about the DLPFC is less engaged when you're physically active.
Where do you get your best ideas?
In the shower? Great. Running? Yeah? Okay,
Right,
perfect.
Yeah, right when you're letting go of everything. Cooking,
I'm
maybe?
driving, that's where I am, right? You get your best ideas because you've let that part, you're already doing it, you're suppressing the DLPFC, it's just happening. And then all of this, they actually say the concept of left and right brain is kind of gone by the wayside. There's this interconnection of a bunch of different parts of the brain called the default mode network.
Nerd alert.
And when the DLPFC suppresses, the default mode network engages, and then you've got all of this work that's happening. So it's funny, we're like, no, make sure you do this, but that's because it really matters. It's why Steve Jobs had things like the walking meeting. Get up, let's walk around. If you've ever walked into a brainstorming meeting and everybody is seated at a table,
Bad.
you will not generate ideas right off the bat unless you stand up and you move. This is important to know. 10 people. Okay, great. I need the next 2 rows, please. So let's go, you guys. That's 6. And you guys just went, but you can come up. And then 3 more. Yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come on over. Round of applause for our next set of volunteers.
And we're just going to have you actually just kind of stay back here for now, like where I am in a cluster.
Yep. So we're going to play a game called Beads on a String. leads on a string. In this game, and I'll make sure that they can hear this. In this game, what's going to happen is you guys are going to tell a story. But what we're going to know from this group of people is there's going to be a beginning line to the story, there's going to be a middle line to the story, and then there will be an end line to the story. So let's just, who's most nervous right now? Raise your hand. Excellent. Good. You can be right here. You can be right here. This is perfect. We don't have to do anything except for repeat one.
Who's next most nervous?
Next most nervous.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
Excellent. Great. Come on right here to the center. Perfect.
I think
Okay.
so. We'll adjust.
So this is going to be our first line. This will be our middle line of the story, and this will be the last line of the story. What our other folks up here on stage have to do is one at a time, they're going to come out and add to the story, one line at a time, to make this make sense. So the goal is make where we start here, go to here, end here, make sense, and you come in one at a time to fill in. So for example, your first line might be, give me a line.
It was a dark and stormy night.
Right, so I might then be inspired to step in and go, ah, mommy. Right, and then we would go middle and end. And then the next time we would repeat these lines, and we would add in another person, wherever on this string. You don't have to go in order.
Could be
Go
before,
where you're
after.
inspired.
Totally doesn't matter. Could I get the first line of a story that has never been told before?
First line of a story. Just yell at it.
Long time ago.
A long time ago. All right, your line is a long time ago. When I point to you, we'll have the microphone on you, you will simply just say,
A long time ago.
perfect, yes, great. Let's see, somebody who hasn't spoken yet. You, sir, would you give me the line, next line in the story?
Middle.
Middle line of the story that's never been told before.
Of that story?
Of any, and just any line.
Random, they gotta make it
Totally
make
random,
sense.
they
You know
have
the
to make
words.
sense of it.
This is easy.
The ground was bubbling.
The ground was bubbling.
The ground was bubbling.
Excellent, great. And now, from all the way, Oksana, if you would please give me the last line. How are we going to end this story?
And everybody went home.
And everybody went home. Perfect.
Everybody went home.
Excellent. So, Gail, are you good moving back and forth? on
Yeah,
those?
I'm gonna tap.
Great. Yeah. So, you're going to say your line?
It's any line that
It's the line that you just heard. You'll only ever say that line.
a long time ago.
Good. Your line is?
The ground was bubbling.
Great. And your line brings home?
And everybody came home.
Great. Now, one of you needs to step forward and add a line.
Start
So
to
we'll start
make it
with
make
you.
sense.
Go ahead and say your line.
Okay, well,
A long time ago.
While I was stumbling through the woods,
The ground was bubbling.
and everybody went home.
Excellent. Great. Now someone else step forward. Good.
A long time ago.
keep my work on it.
While I stumbled through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs.
The ground was bubbling.
and everybody went home.
Excellent. Somebody else step forward.
A long time ago.
There were 3 lions and a bear.
While I stumbled through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs.
While the ground was bubbling.
and everybody went home.
Somebody step forward. Anywhere you want to.
A long time ago.
There were 3 lions and a bear.
While I was stumbling through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs. And checking my email.
The ground was bubbling.
and everybody went home.
Nice.
And even if there doesn't appear to be space between someone, you can come in. So we have someone come in already.
A
Hold
long
on.
time ago.
There were 3 lions and a bear.
Stand here.
While I was stumbling through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs. And checking my email.
The ground was bubbling.
My tummy was rumbling.
and everybody went home.
Stay forward so I don't have to reach so far for you. I'm a short girl. Okay, slide down just a little. Perfect.
A long time ago.
There were 3 lions and a bear. And then there was lightning.
While I was stumbling through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs. And checking my email.
The ground was bubbling.
My tummy was rumbling.
I lost my shoes.
and everybody went home.
All right, last one. Bring us home.
Here's the story that has never been told.
Can't wait for this.
A long time ago.
There were 3 lions and a bear. And then there was lightning.
While I was stumbling through the woods,
Eating a bunch of hot dogs. Checking my email.
The ground was bubbling.
My tummy was rumbling. I fell off a cliff.
I lost my shoes.
and everybody went home.
All right. Thank you very much for the back scenes. That's awesome. So question for you. You guys who participated, did you ever think the story was going to go where it was going to go?
I really like the Tommy was rumbling.
Tommy was rumbling, that was a
And the
surprise.
hot dogs.
That's right.
So that was mine too.
Again, you know, if you think about improv and you think about failure, there's a bunch of data about laughter. So the one, there are two things that are biologically contagious. Sneeze, which you're probably pretty familiar with, and a smile or laughter. And it is remarkable what happens in the brain when you smile and laugh. By putting people in this situation, yes, they're nervous, right? Of course, you guys are all nervous. You know, like, you get
Liars,
in
you
front
big
of-
fat liars.
Yeah, I'm not nervous. I'm really not sure. I was nervous when I stood up here. Come on now. But what's important is by getting people engaged, by starting this concept of listening, person to person to person, how am I going to support when my tummy was rumbling, that came out of nowhere, great. I better make sure that I support it in a way that makes the line successful.
So we're gonna finish with one last little activity. You're fine.
Yes.
Don't worry. We're gonna take Ben and Alok.
Ben and
embarrass
Alok,
them
if you guys can come up, please, to the stage.
And then we should have a little time for questions at the end if you have any. I'm pretty sure you won't because we're amazing. So there's that.
Please don't talk to me. Please don't look at me. Okay, so Gail, go ahead and get the mic. So all three of them are going to play in this game. This game is going to be called Spelling Bee. And the game is called Spelling Bee. Now, if you remember from your Scripps National Spelling Bee, there are a couple of mechanics that always happen. So when you say a word, sir, if you could give me a nonsensical one-syllable word. Nonsensical, just one syllable. Nonsensical. One, nonsensical, just like totally like a random.
Not a real word.
Not a real word. Flubber. Flubber. Okay, flubber. And two syllables, what word is? Okay. So flubber. So the idea is you guys would first say the word out
All
loud.
together.
Flubber.
Good. And then you would spell it.
P.
Oh. So you have to say yes and then look. So if she says P, we're going to go down the line.
No.
We're spelling it. P.
H.
L.
U.
B.
B.
R.
E.
Flubber.
And then you will all say it at the end together.
Flubber.
Great. So that's basically the mechanic, right? That's what they're going to do. Now, I will make this more difficult in a minute, but I will ask you to define it, which you will do one word at a time. And then I will ask you to use it in a sentence, which you will do one word at a time. So we will spell it, we will define it, and then we will use it in a sentence. Okay? And each time you're doing flubber, blah, 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 whatever it is. And then at the end, flubber. Questions? No. All right, hello? All right, that's good. Okay, can I get a nonsensical, totally random, one-syllable word? One syllable. Fleck. Fleck. Your word is fleck.
Fleck. Fleck.
There you go. Good.
F.
L. E.
K.
Fleck.
Excellent. Excellent. I like fleck. Could you please define fleck for me? Thank you.
Fleck. When
You.
Have something.
Just one word.
Have.
something.
Stuck.
In.
Your.
Nether. Region.
Fleck. Yes, excellent. Wow. I mean, that's one of my favorite words to discuss when my unmentionables might have something in them. So great. Could you please use fleck in a sentence?
Fleck.
Ah!
I. O.
My.
Physical. Thing.
To.
My. Posterior.
Period.
Fleck.
All right, man. I don't know if we had a little mini stroke at TIA in the middle of that somewhere, but okay, fleck. Great. All right, let's go up a little harder. Jim, could you give me a three-syllable word? Three-syllable word, totally nonsensical. Chip.
Chip Witchley.
Chip Witchley. Chip Witchley.
Chip.
Chip.
Witchley.
Good.
C.
H.
I.
P.
Q.
L.
Y.
Chip
What's
Witchley.
interesting about that word is there's just a bunch of words or letters that you think should be in there, and then they're just not. So it's like a Native American word, or they just kind of narrow it down. Good. Could you please define Chip Witchley?
Chip Witchley.
When
Traveling.
I.
use
Often.
Camping.
my
Favorite.
Device.
called
A.
Chip Witchley.
He was so excited about the device when he's camping, he just couldn't get it out. Like, good. Oh man, that's great. Could you please use Chip Witchley? Did we just do using Chip Witchley in a sentence? Yes, use Chip Witchley in a sentence.
Chip.
Chip Witchley.
My
Worst
Nightmare.
is
when
I.
find
my
Chip Witchley.
missing.
Chip
Witchley.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. That was great. Nice job, guys. Nice job. So.